Welcome into another day after. I'm Tommy Ashley. Buck Sanders in the middle, Jason Staples on the right. Carolina 41-6 on Saturday against Richmond. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. And if you're not a member of Inside Carolina, type www.insidecarolina.com in your bar up there and log in and sign up for the Inside Carolina premium stuff. It is a great way to be informed. Gentlemen, feel like I just left you guys. I saw you yesterday. Jason Staples, of course, joined the IC Live show in the parking lot of the Bowls lot along with Trey Edge and Spencer Haskell and special guest Jim Hawkins. What a great day in the Bowls lot. It was one of my favorite shows we've ever done. It was a fun time with Trey and Jason on site.
You're just saying that because Joey wasn't there.
Just giving him a hard time. It was a fun show. We definitely missed. Look, Joey's in the chat too. We definitely missed Joey out there, but it goes by fast. I mean, you guys were teeing it up, or I was teeing it up, and you guys were knocking it out of the park, and a fun time, and really enjoyed talking to Hawk. But let's get to the matter at hand. Carolina wins 41-6. Buck, we've talked about for years Carolina handling business and doing it in a way that is pleasing to the eye, but also is pleasing to the scorebook or the scorecard or the stats. And Carolina, while we can talk about some negatives from yesterday for sure, I thought Carolina on the whole did that. And it's not always the case. Maybe it is this year, but it hasn't always been. Your overall thoughts before we dig in?
Well, you're correct there in the sense that if we were just talking about this game in the abstract and somebody said, well, what if you won 41-6? Would you be happy with that? Knowing that much, you would say, yeah, I'd take that all day, every day. Certainly there's some things that need to get fixed, especially offensively still. There's several things I thought were an improvement offensively. One of those, I thought that the play calling, since we've been on Freddie Kitchens' back for a little bit on these podcasts, I think I'd give him a increased grade level mark there, maybe from a C- to a B- or B wherever, somewhere in there. It was great to see Damon June do well.
He ran like a demon out there.
Well, yeah, he did. But we're going to call him Damon because it hurts Don Callahan's feelings if we don't. But anyway, it's great to see him play really well. He got 140. Of course, he got like 95 yards on 2 of those carries, but still got a touchdown out of the one of them and set up another touchdown with the other run. So you can't argue with that. Looks like they're settled pretty much on their running back rotation headed into increased competition level that's coming up, starting with UCF. There's some other things. Jordan Shipp, I think, is kind of set itself apart as wide receiver 1. So, and Culliver would be number 2, I guess, at this point. So some things came together, I thought, offensively. Defensively, Jason, last thing he said to me yesterday when he was leaving the Bowls lot is, today we're going to talk about defense. And we'll be talking about defense today. And wow, what a difference. What a difference. Used to we would talk about, and I can remember when Jay Bateman was here and we were looking at the roster and the depth charts. They had, I can't remember it correctly, they had like 10 or 11 guys that were defensive linemen that went over 300 pounds at the time. It was just, they had a monster set of defensive players on the defensive line. This defensive line is better. I never saw a defensive line play this well, of course, level of competition in the entire Mac Brown era. And they're doing more than we expected they were going to do. But we'll get into that into depth later on. But initially, my grades would be, offense, B, defense A, special teams A, and that's where I would leave it for now.
Jason, you said we're going to talk defense. I predicted a defensive touchdown. I thought it was going to be Kamori House there early. He had a chance. That ball didn't
Real
stay up quite
close.
long enough.
But that's why I said take the field, because it's hard to project one guy getting it. But
Absolutely.
we weren't surprised by that one, were we?
No, absolutely not. And what we're becoming less surprised of is the defensive line showing up and playing. And I thought, I always hesitate on level of competition. But as a Carolina football follower for years, I've seen level of competition not really matter as to level of performance. And it feels like, at least early, and at least in these last 2 weeks, that they're doing what they're supposed to do. We talk about it. We've talked about it for years. But your overall thoughts, and let's go defense first here before the midway break. I think we saw a lot of good that travels. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, the defense was what I thought we would see yesterday. One of the things that we talked about right before we went off air, you asked for scores. Is like, the more I've been looking at this, I'm not sure they give up a touchdown. I'm not sure they give up 13 points against this team. Because I think, again, what have we said for years on this podcast? Defensive line in terms of defense, if you want to be consistent, if you want to be a team that wins the games that you should win, it starts at quarterback and defensive line. If you have a quarterback where he's going to consistently make the right decisions, you're going to finish every drive with a kick, and your defensive line dominates, you're going to win a lot of games, and you're generally going to win the games that you should win against better teams, or against teams you're better than. I've been trying to figure out, by the way, the last time, I'm still looking through it. I've gone through 2016 now. The last time that North Carolina's gone 2 games in a row without giving up a touchdown.
I think it's 12. I saw it. I think it was Idaho and East Carolina back to back.
Yeah.
Long time.
I mean, Carolina's played some bad teams back to back over that span. Now, these 2 teams, I mean, Charlotte and they haven't played
Richmond.
Richmond.
Jeez.
It's been a long weekend already. But these 2 teams, Charlotte and Richmond, are, let's be fair, not good offenses. But they gave up 20 to the same Charlotte team last year. Right? So I think we did see, and what I still haven't seen the all 22 from this one, but we did see in the week-to-week transition and turnover, we did see the progress up front to where they're becoming consistent in terms of being in the right gap, fighting pressure with pressure, being unselfish and occupying blocks. The linebackers are triggering correctly and properly and quickly against the run. There's a lot to be excited about on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I think, Buck, you're right. This was regardless of opponent, this was an A-level performance on the defensive side. And I think it's through 3 games, I think we can fairly safely say that this defense is better than we projected it to be in the offseason. Now, again, you have to adjust for competition, but even adjusting for that, I would say that this defense is a little bit better than we thought it would be coming into the season. And the main reason is because where we had our biggest concerns, and that's the defensive tackle spots, that's actually been, by and large, a strength of this defense so far this year. And so if that was your biggest concern coming in, that's a good thing that the biggest concern has actually been pretty good. I mean, are they elite? No. Are they pretty good, even on an ACC level? Yeah, I think so. I think that's they've played now with the consistency through 3 weeks where you've started to see some things Week 1 there was still some rough edges, and there still are here and there, but they've played pretty well. There's I think there's some concerns in the secondary right now as they play against some better teams that may cost them a little bit down the line. That's maybe not quite as good in the secondary as what the hope was coming into the year, but up front, I think they're better than we projected.
And to your point, that pays dividends. But we talked about quarterback for Richmond, Wickersham, and how he was a threat. He had done everything for them. He finished with minus 20 yards rushing. And I understand sacks are included in there, snacks too. If we've seen quarterbacks have time to eat snacks in the pocket and still make plays. But obviously he got banged up and drilled there. He almost got himself killed. But that's the difference for me is Carolina being able to stop what you know is coming. And that's not always been the case either. And we saw a lot of that yesterday. They basically shut down Richmond's main guy. You cut the head off the snake or the head off the spider, and they really had nothing left for Carolina. But your thoughts on how they were able to handle that dual threat when we've seen that dual threat be a problem for every team for years?
Well, Jason was talking about the interior of the defensive line in particular looking really good. And if you go back and look at some of those, look at the stat sheet on the defensive side of the ball, Leroy Jackson, however Jason says it, he had 7 total tackles, 4 solo tackles on the interior of the defensive line. Those are numbers you just don't see from a defensive tackle spot. And there are several other. Isaiah Johnson had 5 tackles, 2 of them solos. DeAndre Robinson had 4 tackles, 1 solo. Lewis Xavier, who we've not really seen play that much so far, had 4 tackles and 2 solos. So they are, holding their blocks and letting linebackers clean up because the linebackers were 1 and 2 and 4 in total tackles yesterday. They're doing that. They're keeping the linebackers clean. But beyond that, they are getting off the ball. They're shedding blocks, and they're clogging up that middle and clogging up the interior. And plus, I thought Smith Velbert did a good job on the edge. And, of course, Melkart did a great job on the other side. Of course, he was more of the rush guy, and with Velbert setting the edge. You got a 282-pound guy setting the edge for you over there at 6'6", I guess. That's a good guy to make sure that nobody pushes that edge around. So shedding the blocks, I think, on the interior, the quarterback had nowhere to go. He just had nowhere to go up the middle, and they had the edges protected. So I think that's how they kept him in check. 3 linebackers, and probably one of them spying on that guy for the majority of the game. Those things probably also helped. But I am surprised at how well, everybody hopes when you have a situation like we had headed into the preseason that the guys on the defensive line can at least stay engaged and with the blocks and maintained so that the linebackers could clean up. But they're doing more than that. They are making plays out there. So that's the thing I think that really helped North Carolina out as far as containing Wickersham.
I've got a 2-part question, Jason, and I think it's 100% relevant. But Buck mentioned Melkart Abujade. Dude was a monster, especially early in the game, and everybody keeps asking about Price Yates, and that'll help if he ever gets healthy and he ever plays this season for Carolina. But Melkart, we talked about him a lot in the preseason on our scouts and all. I thought that he was the difference maker early, and if you talk about quarterbacks getting happy feet, or I don't like using the term gun shy, but you know what I'm talking about. He was there. He was causing that early for Wickersham. But your thoughts on how he's played and how the edges have played in general. Yates will help, but Yates is not available. And so Melkart's really stepped up.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you saw from him was what the hope was that he might be this season. Now, this was against an overmatched defensive line or offensive line. That is, he was better than the guys he was going against by a good bit. And a couple of the plays that he made, those were defensive line team plays. Right? You had the thing that was really impressive in some of those sacks and some of the pressures that they got was how much they were able to compress the pocket rather than trying to run around blocks. They were able to force the quarterback to be uncomfortable by essentially compressing around him, and then as he went to try to escape, all of a sudden he's wrapped up. And that's what you want. I mean, that's that. I think generally speaking, sacks get overvalued, but the value of compressing the pocket and making the quarterback uncomfortable with pressure, where it may not even be a sack, is undervalued. And it wasn't just the 2 sacks that Abujade had. It was the way that he got them, and not just from him, but as a team. Now, again, what's going to happen when they go against better offensive lines than what they've played the last 2 weeks? Well, we're going to see. To me, though, it's, again, about the effort and the fundamentals that we saw, where I don't think most of the teams remaining on the schedule are going to be so much better on the offensive line that they're going to have these guys on skates. And that's a change from what we've seen in recent years. There will be teams that are going to be able to run the football. There's going to be more seams. There's going to be stuff that's there. But we're not talking about some of the things that we've complained about and seen the last few years. I think there has been some significant progress on that. And what Melkart did was an example of that. And again, I think this was a full team thing up front. And by the way, I mean, if we are looking ahead at the schedule, I mean, one of the things that we all kind of took for granted coming into the year was that Clemson, for example, had some returnees on the offensive line and that they would be, just kind of chalk that down as a loss. Through 3 games, Clemson can't run the football. Their offensive line can't, they're not putting anybody on skates. Now, granted, that's 2 good football teams that they've lost to, but even Troy gave them trouble and they weren't able to run the football with consistency there. That suddenly looks like a winnable game if you can produce any offense against their defense. So, I mean, there's some things that as you look ahead on the schedule, you go, okay, we're having to adjust a little bit onto, what to expect. Now, Cal looks like less of a walkover, and even lowly Stanford got a win last night. So, some things look harder than they did before, but some things, I mean, I think this is going to be a really interesting, really competitive schedule moving forward if they can get the offense on track.
Another thing, second part of that question, hats to the ball. You talked about that a lot. We've talked about backside effort. I thought Carolina did that really well, especially when you've got a big quarterback like that. Like I think they were credited with 2 missed tackles. Trey Miller had one of those. And I don't know if that play that Trey Miller made the initial hit on one of their big offensive players where he was kind of hanging on his foot while everybody else came to the ball. I don't know if they gave Trey a missed tackle on that or not. I'd have to watch the tape fully. But regardless, they got to the ball. Whereas in years past, if guys aren't getting to the ball, that could be a step out and the guy gets 5-6 more yards. That is something you really highlighted as wanting to see. Did you see that in full Saturday?
Not in full, but again, I try to answer both questions kind of in one in saying that this is a team effort in terms of what we saw in the defensive line. It's all about the angles and compressing so that when a guy goes to escape, like you said, he's not stepping into space, he's stepping right into your buddy. And, Melkart's first sack was Leroy Jackson flushing him right to him. Right? I mean, you got penetration, you got the defensive tackle just kicked the tail of the guy blocking him, and the defensive end was the beneficiary after he kicked the tail of the tackle blocking him. That's what you want. Now, I could still see a little bit more in terms of hats to the ball on, in the running game at times and things like that. But it's better, and it definitely is moving in the right direction. But I wouldn't be satisfied if I was on this coaching staff either.
It's always good not to be satisfied, even when you accomplish what you wanted to, winning 41-6. This Carolina team has plenty to work with, and work to. Buck, final thoughts on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, it's tough to be critical at all when it's 41-6. There were PIs. Marcus Allen got dinged with a PI. Haven't watched it over again. I've seen a lot worse. Caleb Cost made a nice play on that interception. They called that PI and wiped it out. But your overall final thoughts here on the defensive side, I think, as to Jason's point and to our point, this unit is moving forward and showing week-by-week progression as North Carolina advances in the schedule. And to Jason's point, the schedule is completely different looking than it was when we started this stuff back in August talking about it.
Yeah, that's all true. The thing about final things I would say about the defense is that we saw a lot of players play yesterday. I mean, and a lot of them played earlier than I anticipated them playing. I've already mentioned Xavier Lewis. He was in the game fairly early on, and they were rotating guys on the defensive line left and right. They get Mims in there, they get Jackson, they get Johnson, they get this guy. I mean, they are playing a lot of guys, keeping them fresh. That's all a good thing. And towards the end of the game, the great stuff about the defense is they were getting people in there like Trey Giddings and other people that are not maybe likely to see the ball a lot, but that's going to play dividends down the road. Not just maybe for this year, but just getting the guys in, letting them get their feet wet, letting them understand what the game is like, college game speed. That's a big deal. And so I'm glad to see that part of it, playing so many players. They played over 60 people total yesterday, so that's a good thing.
Looks like my math is not great. 13 defensive linemen, 6 linebackers. 6 linebackers got more than 15 snaps, and about 12 or 13 defensive backs. Jason, final thoughts on the defensive side, team effort, all that stuff. Jaden Patterson flashed. When I'm looking at the snap counts, there's a lot
Reggie
of guys.
Love.
Reggie, that makes me feel old. Because senior graduated after we did. Hearing his name called is painful. No disrespect to Love Jr., but it makes you feel really old. Jason, final thoughts here.
When you get my age, you're well past thinking about that stuff.
You start worrying about grandchildren playing.
You don't care about that anymore. Get to my age.
Well, I don't know if I'll ever get to your age there, Buck, but we'll see.
Hope so. It's a blessing to.
Good luck to you. It's better than the alternative, I'll tell you that.
Well, we don't know that for sure, but I'm guessing you're probably right.
For me, especially.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting off track here.
Okay.
Every day's a good day above ground.
The last thing that I'll say about the defense is that I think against any team that doesn't have a really good number 2 wide receiver and a pretty decent offensive line, this defense will keep them in the game. I think the real challenge for this defense is going to be any team that has a really good, a problematic matchup problem at the number 2 wide receiver, maybe the number 3 wide receiver, and then has enough up front to be able to handle, at least stalemate Carolina's defensive line. That team's going to be a real headache. So if you're looking ahead at what teams are going to be able to score against this Carolina defense, that's what you're looking at, I think. And I think that still brings, say, Clemson into the fold. I think Virginia probably has a second receiver that gives you trouble. But that's kind of where you're at. You're starting to look at and say, okay, matchup-wise, what can this defense take away? If you're an offense that depends on your number 1 receiver being really good and causing problems, Dixon's going to make that hard. And then if you don't have enough up front, the rest of it's going to be hard. But I think that's the thing is as I'm looking ahead, I'm starting to look ahead at, which future opponents have number 2 and number 3 wide receivers that are a problem. And that's probably what I'm circling the most.
Great insight there for folks to do their homework and check as you go down the schedule, starting with UCF on Saturday in the Bounce House at 3:30 down there in Orlando. Talking with Buck, Jason, I'm Tommy. It's Johnny T-Shirt sponsors the show, sponsors Inside Carolina. Go get your premium subscription. Go to Johnny T-Shirt and get your premium swag, either on Franklin Street or online at johnnytshirt.com. Of course, they're great. Alumni-owned and operated. Customer services is through the roof. They got it all going, and they could use your support. There's a reason they've been on Franklin Street since I was a baby, and they do it right. Inside Carolina's Johnny T-Shirt partnership lives on. Take advantage of it with your premium subscription. Let's go offense, Buck. And this is 41 points is nice, or 34 points are nice, but Ship could have had a couple touchdowns early. He's running free. I mean, I haven't watched the game, rewatched it, but by my eyes, from where I sit, he was open pretty much every time he was on the
All
field.
game.
And he got what he finished with. He had 4 catches. Probably could have doubled that at least if Lopez sees him, but this is a recurring thing, Buck, and I don't know if it's a fixable thing, but your thoughts on Lopez and the offense, specifically the passing offense, because I think DeMond June has sort of put a stamp on the running side of it.
Well, as far as that first touchdown to Ship goes, as open as he was, I'm pretty sure either one of you guys could have caught that ball and probably scored. He was so wide open. He was lonely, and it was a complete busted coverage situation. He was all by himself, nobody within 15 yards of him anywhere, so he walked that one in. I think the second touchdown by Ship, or they rolled Lopez to his left and caught Ship that way. That was a pretty good play call, I thought. But you're right. There was a lot more opportunities for Ship than Lopez saw. I think when you there's so many thoughts that run through my head about that such situation that throwing 10 completions in a game like that, and what was it, 119 yards passing offense. 2022, I think Drake May had 300 yards a game against the entire schedule, not just the worst team, on your schedule. Now it's a different era. I mean, Belichick is never going to have a team probably never going to have a team at the college level that's getting 538 yards a game total, but
give him a Tom Brady and he would.
Probably. I mean, Brady did throw 50 touchdowns one year, so you never know. But at the same time, I think he's still learning the college game to an extent. Belichick is. Probably he's been in it 8 months and he knows more than any of us will ever know about it. But at the same time, they didn't really need to throw the football. They could have. But 10 completions on 19 attempts, that's not getting it done. And when you play a team that is a little bit closer to you talent-wise, it's going to matter a lot. So that's my concern. I think they've got the running game part of it figured out a little bit, but not against better teams where if you can't throw the ball, that just frees them up to concentrate on stopping the run. They'll have 8 guys in the box if North Carolina can't at least threaten people with the passing game. I don't know what the solution there is, but it's troubling. I get what everybody is saying about Lopez being indecisive. He looks like he doesn't really know what to do with the ball when it's in his hands. He hesitates. he gets sacked just because he's hesitating and can't make a decision. His throws are late. I know that's a big thing for Jason. Is that's kind of how you judge a lot of quarterback play. Are they throwing the ball on time? Well, I'm not sure he threw a ball on time once all day yesterday. So his timing needs to improve. And where they're going to go from here, I have no idea. I don't like to throw anybody under the bus and hope it doesn't come across that way. But if I'm Belichick, I'm thinking maybe Max is going to give me a little bit, at least a higher floor when we play tougher competition. He's played against tougher competition. And so far, the experience of Lopez against increased level of competition has not worked out well for North Carolina. So I don't know where you go from here, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that's thinking about such things outside of Keenan Football Center and inside of it.
Yeah, you are not, Jason. The lateness factor is one thing that is concerning, and it's to Buck's point, throwing the ball on time. I mean, I mentioned it in the lead there. There were plenty of times where guys were wide open. He could have hit Ship anywhere in that route, multiple times, and I don't know how you fix that in season, Jason. Your thoughts on Lopez overall? I know you're itching to get in.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I want to say once again, I see in the comments all this about, him being short, and this is a short quarterback problem. Guys, stop it. It's just not that. This is a processing problem. This is a quarterback who I'm not sure knows the offense all that well yet. I mean, I think that's part of it. And, we have let's go back to when they first brought him in, when they first signed him. We had one of those emergency podcasts where we're talking about the new addition. What was the first thing we talked about?
I'll let you do it. I know we got cooked for it.
It's really, really hard for a guy to come in as a summer enrollee and play right away in a new offense as a quarterback. It just is. And I mean, I got what you're talking about, me getting cooked. I was saying, well, as a thrower, I don't see a whole lot that he does better than Jacoby Criswell. And if this is going to be the guy you're going to roll with, he looks a lot like Criswell to me, and you could have had Criswell for the spring. And so you probably have a guy that winds up more familiar with your offense, so I don't quite understand. That's what I said, and I got cooked for it. I don't want to take a victory lap at this point, partly because I think we're still early in this process. So we'll see. And he does run better than Criswell did last year for sure, with the added weight, though Criswell was playing through broken ribs through a good portion of last year. So let's be fair. But there have been some really concerning signs, moving forward. One of the most concerning plays was, and I'm sure everybody will remember this. There was one where it was an RPO, so I think it was a power a counter RPO. So you had a couple pullers, and Gio is reading second level, and he pulls it, and he goes to throw to Ship, and Ship is blocking. And so he throws it at Ship's feet, and then he starts to holler at Ship saying, "Dude." And Ship points to the other side of the field, and I can tell you what the conversation was. "Bro, I'm blocking. This reads the other side. That's your read." And Gio responded back, and then Ship pointed again, and then I saw Gio go, "Oh, yeah, you're right." And when I went back and I took a look at this, and I've not rewatched the whole game yet, but when I went back and I took a look at this, I was like, "Oh yeah, this whole thing is designed to read the second level player on the left side." And they had a glance route there, and I think it was Culliver at receiver on that side, and he should have been reading there. He was reading the complete wrong side on the play, and he just didn't know. That's a bigger problem right here. I mean, normally, I'll say this, 9 times out of 10, if not more than that, if a quarterback and a receiver have a difference of opinion on something, or if somebody goes the wrong way or whatever, it's rarely the quarterback. Quarterback normally gets that stuff right. It's normally the freshman running back or something going the wrong way, whatever. But in the last couple of weeks, there's been probably 3 or 4 plays where Gio's just been wrong. And you can't have that. Like, your quarterback has to know exactly what the play is and where he's supposed to be looking and all that at all times. Like, that's not optional. It's just not optional. And so that's number one. Number two is I'm looking at a couple things here, and I'm going to bring some numbers just so that they can put some flesh on sort of what my eyes have seen as well. Number one is average time to throw, the total time to get the ball out, and this is including RPOs and quick games. So getting the ball out presumably is much faster. The average time to throw so far on the season for Gio Lopez is 3.04 seconds. He's holding the ball for over 3 seconds per play when he's got it to throw. Now, for reference, on the 11 pass plays that Max Johnson was in there against TCU, his average time to throw was 2.3 seconds. Over 3/4 of a second faster getting the ball out than Gio. Now, this is not because Max Johnson is 6'5" or 6'5.5" or whatever, and Gio is 5'11.5". It's not about height. It's simply about understanding what they're seeing, processing it, and getting it out quickly. And then the other thing that we're seeing is the adjusted accuracy rate. So this is when is the ball on frame? Is it, are you making your guy work to get it, or is the ball accurate? Are you throwing this ball accurately? Pro Football Focus's adjusted accuracy percentage for Gio on the season is 73.5. That's not completion percentage. Completion percentage is 58.5, which is still well below the number. I mean, in today's game, 64% is kind of your bottom level. For a true dual threat guy, maybe around 60% is fine. But Gio hasn't been what I would classify as a true dual threat guy so far this year. Right? He hasn't been a big play creator with his legs. He's been able to scramble, he's been able to break some tackles, he's been able to do some of that stuff. But 73.5% adjusted completion percentage is not very good. It's not getting it done. You expect, to put it in perspective, Tommy Castellanos at Georgia or at Boston College last year was at about 83% and lost his job. Okay? That's a full 10% higher. And I might be remembering the number off by a couple points. But we're talking about close to 10 points higher completion percentage last year from Castellanos, and he lost his job at Boston College because he wasn't putting the ball in the right spots with accuracy to the satisfaction of Bill O'Brien. So those things are all really concerning. Now, I look at average depth of target, and it's 11.4. I mean, that's really high. So you're going to get a lower accuracy rate on that than normal. They're really pushing it downfield with him. But you think about this, that first Jordan Shipp touchdown, that was a great catch. And it didn't need to be a great catch.
Yep.
He was wide donkey open. Right? I mean, and there's no pressure. There's no pressure in the pocket. That is a set, in rhythm, throw, and that ball should be, I mean, that's a 7-on-7 warm-up throw. Put it on his frame, and he walks into the end zone, and instead, that ball was 2 yards off target.
And high over the middle. And Shipp went up and climbed the ladder and got it, and then got into the end zone, but he actually had to take contact to get into the end zone. That should have been a walk-in if you put that ball on frame. And there were multiple examples of that. And when I went back last week and we were doing, what's holding the offense back, there were a couple of those plays where, here's a screen pass, and the screen pass is all the way up here. It's
3 feet above a guy's head, which makes him have to jump for it, reset his feet and all that. And that gets a guy off balance and changes the play. So, this is one where Carolina's going to have to assess in the next week. And, if they don't make that decision before Central Florida, they're going to have to make that decision after Central Florida when they've got a bye week, whether or not Gio Lopez is the guy that they need to be rolling with the remainder of the season. My suspicion is that they'll roll him out there against UCF, but that he's going to have a little bit shorter leash than he's had up to now against UCF, because UCF can actually beat you. And then, depending on what happens against UCF, you have your bye week. And if there's a permanent change, that's probably where you do it. But I look at this and I go, you've got a guy as a backup in Max Johnson who does get the ball out. I mean, thing is, Max gets it out late by my standards as well. But compared to Gio, he's arriving well early for the party. But you've got a guy that can make those throws, and your offense may be a lot better with him at this stage, given what you have at receiver and other things. So I think you have to really seriously evaluate this position moving forward if you want to have the season that you're hoping to have from here.
Yeah, there's a lot of meat on that bone, and Staples just ran with it. Looking at the PFF grades for Richmond, if I saw those PFF grades, and granted PFF is one thing, but if I saw
those grades
PFF
match what my eyes saw.
But if I saw them without knowing the score of the game, I think Carolina lost.
Passing grade of 38.9, and that, I'm telling you, that matches what my eyes saw.
Yeah. And then he takes a hit that he does not need to take the hit and coughs the ball up. That can't happen. But you flip it over in the run game. Damon June has taken his assumably rightful place at the top of the depth chart. The kid runs angry. One of my favorite runs of the entire day was the 45-yard touchdown run, and he didn't let up at all. There was no celebration. There was no, I'm going to walk in the end zone. He sprinted full bore to the goal line. And then he had that play where he got caught on, I guess, the jet sweep type play. But that's what I like to see. And Jason always talks about broken tackles. I think he had 4 yesterday. Davion Goss actually had 3 yesterday as well. But June has really stepped up to a point where he's the guy, right, Buck? And
absolutely.
I thought you were muted. I thought you were going to be muted there for a second.
No. I pulled the trigger. I pulled the trigger before you could catch me on that. He has the it factor, right? That when he gets the ball in his hands, he knows what to do with it. He's not. He's the opposite of Gio in the sense that he doesn't hesitate. There's no hesitation in what he does. He's not troubled by anything. He just takes the ball and goes. He knows he's got one job to do, and then he goes, does it. So, I really like the way he runs. As I said before, I think he reminds me, his style reminds me of Javonte Williams a little bit as a college runner. But at the same time, they're going to need some other running backs to do other things. And I don't know where he's at in particular with, pass protection. I'm sure that's usually the last thing to come for a true freshman running back. So there's a thing you worry about if you need him in pass pro. But other than that, yes, he's a great asset to this team. He reminds me of his, in some ways, of his current football coach, Natron Means.
Yeah, a lot of similarities.
So there's a lot there, and I'm glad he's a freshman. Except I hope they can keep the NIL money on him and in a UNC uniform from this point forward.
Jason, your thoughts here. I mean, there was some nice plays to get him loose. A couple other plays that were important, and it may not have been just him. I'd have to go back and watch, but there were some where the offensive line got blown up, and it was a hell of a run. It was probably a 2-yard gain to save those. The run game, you talked about how the defense is better than you expected. Is the run game, especially without Blasky and Kelly in there, because I think you adjust with those guys. But what you saw Saturday,
So if you told me before the season that this team didn't have Blasky and Kelly, I'd have told you they ain't running the football.
mm-hmm.
I mean, that would have been what I would have said is like, well, they're not running the football, and there's a real chance that whoever's starting quarterback, and I would have expected Gio is going to get hurt. That would have been my preseason evaluation on that, especially since if you go back and you read my preseason scouting report on Gio, one of the things that I said is that he doesn't have very good in-pocket presence. He doesn't recognize pressure very well. He takes some huge shots, and that has stood up. That hasn't changed. And so if he doesn't have Blasky and Kelly in there to, basically make that offensive line that much better, that's going to make things harder. But the real question coming into the season is they had what I thought of as 4, average to above average backs. Somewhere in there, in the maybe, right around, maybe one of them becomes a really good ACC back. But the question was, could any of them take that step forward to become a real player? And it looks like Juju has done that. And he wasn't even in the 4 that I evaluated for the season. It looks like he's past the average to above average guys and is legitimately at this point in the season played like an above average player. I do think there's some limitations, in terms of what he brings to the table. I mean, you saw it on the long run that he had. He's not a threat to go 70 against ACC teams as a rule, just because the top end speed is not there. But what matters a lot more than top end speed for a back is that short area burst, and then the vision and the feel and the feet to be able to get through spaces, and then the contact balance to break some tackles. And he does have all that. And you put that together with what they're working on the offensive line. And you saw several different offensive line packages yesterday. I think they're still trying to assess who are our guys at different positions. And I think, you saw some stuff at right guard, for example, that I felt coming into yesterday's game that, Daniel King had kind of underperformed what my expectations were for him on the year. I was not surprised to see Will Osteen get a number of reps at that spot. And I thought he looked okay. So they're still trying to figure out what they're best at up front. But at least Juju June gives you some opportunities to get some yards after contact and all of that. And if you do give him a little bit of space, Buck, you pointed this out last week, that it was sort of like when Javonte Williams played at times where, all of a sudden the blocking looks so much better because, he's finding the space, he's finding the crease where it is. And, there is a little bit of that with him. He does seem to have some natural vision, and that we'll see against better teams. He's had some success against the 2 worst defenses that they're going to face for a while, but there's some reason for hope there.
Tight end showed up on the offense. Jake Johnson with 3 catches, 30 yards. Jordan Owens had 1. A lot of positives. I feel like on the offensive side, the negatives we've discussed sort of outweigh them. But Buck, final thoughts before we get out of here, because I'm gonna get out of here before an hour's up. Carolina UCF next Saturday, which will impact our schedule, our podcast schedule. But Buck, I'm gonna let you close us out here on the day after Carolina 41, Richmond 6.
Yes, I unmuted myself again. The thing that I think about in this particular game, and again, level of competition, One thing I want to mention about level of competition, though, is as Jason pointed out earlier, kind of near the top of the show, when we were talking about the defensive line, is that we have seen, and Tommy, you may have mentioned this as well, we've seen North Carolina play lesser opponents and look worse than they looked against Charlotte and Richmond. So comparatively speaking, and we were talking about going back to 2012, it's been since 2012, and that team was loaded with Butch Davis talent on it. That North Carolina has gone 2 weeks in a row without giving up a touchdown. So, what are we talking about? 13 years or so since we've seen anything comparable. So, in any event, we'll see what we'll see. I did want to mention, though, that I did think that Kitchens called a better game this past game. Even one of the screenplays worked, which Jason can go into on his position stuff. Had one. That was Juju as well. I think that went for 19 yards. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. I do think the big question, as we've talked about here, that remains is what are they going to do if Gio goes down to Orlando and lays a huge egg down there, similar to the one at TCU. I think you just have to, grin and not bear it, and make another move. But we'll see how that goes. I think that's the big question going forward, because quite honestly, even against this schedule, if the defense keeps playing the way they have been, they've got a chance in virtually every game they've got left. If the defense can play up to the level that they played against, of course, again, level of competition, but still, if they can play comparatively the way they've played in these last two ball games, they've got a chance this season to win some games. And the thing that's going to be the damper on that is if you can't get enough offensive production. That's above my pay grade, but I'm sure they're thinking about those things even now. That's where I'm at with it.
Carolina and UCF on Saturday, as Buck mentions, Mekhi Bayer, 42 or 62-yard touchdown, fumble return, something we hadn't seen in a while, got that defensive touchdown. Jason, one thing that we have not mentioned that I did find interesting was Otori Newkirk getting in there. The grading systems are not kind for his short stint on the field. Obviously, an interception and then taking a knee. But, Jason, you wanted to add a couple of thoughts on that. Is it a tell? Is it a light inside the quarterback room? But I'll let you close us out with that and whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does just tell you that he is, as we had reported in camp, that he is the number 3 guy ahead of Bryce Baker. And we had reported that in camp, that he had moved ahead of Baker in camp for whatever reason. We haven't had the opportunity to observe what they've observed, but they've got him ahead. You and I exchanged messages about this last night where you were kind of surprised, like, why wouldn't they go to Max Johnson there? Well, the reason is because, again, as we've talked about, I don't think that they feel like they need to figure out what they have in Max Johnson. This is not about trying to feed him for the future. I think they're identifying Otori Newkirk as a potential quarterback of the future, and in garbage time situations, that makes it more. It's more sensible to play that guy than it's not going to be there next year. I think if they need to make a change, and they have to go to a backup quarterback or a new starter, then it's going to be Max Johnson. So he's the number 2 quarterback when it comes to, Gio just got hurt, or, we're midway through the second quarter and it's 21-0 and the offense has been completely anemic because the quarterback's killing us. Max Johnson will be the guy to come in. But if you're up at some point later in the season. And I'm not sure we're going to see that again this year. If you're up, 41-3 late in the game, Newkirk is going to be the guy that's probably going to come in, because I think they've identified him as, a likely, as somebody that they need to get some reps to sort of evaluate as a potential quarterback of the future. And that's really the way that they would be thinking about that. As for what that means about Bryce Baker, that's a good question. I think, Baker needs to continue to compete hard in practice and demonstrate that he deserves to get some of those reps as well if they get some garbage time reps. And again, I'm not sure how many garbage time reps they're going to have, but I think that's what that communicated.
There's an interesting sight for sure. Carolina beats Richmond 41-6. A lot of good, some bad. But either way, Carolina goes to UCF on Saturday. I will be down there. We'll do the game plan podcast on Wednesday night. Jason Staples and maybe a special guest. Folks, if you did not watch Inside Carolina Live on Saturday live before the game, I would suggest finding it on YouTube or going to the YouTube and watching it. It was a great show. Jason and Trey Edge and Spencer Haskell and Jim Hawkins. And I just was a captain. I was the point guard, the quarterback with no legs that could get the ball out quickly. And it was a great time there in the Bowles lot, and a lot of insight there that goes. That
image of you as a quarterback with no legs.
Hey, I just sling it around. We're not running anywhere. I'm not
just
running
on the ground there with no legs.
but anyway, definitely worth the watch. But that'll do it for today. Look forward to Taylor and Vip and Shot. And then there's a basketball show coming on Tuesday, and then the game plan on Wednesday, and ton of content from all the crew at Inside Carolina. That's Buck Sanders. That's Jason Staples. I'm Tommy Ashley. Always Johnny T-shirt. And join up on 3. Get on 3 in the game. InsideCarolina.com. It's $1. It's really cheap right now, and it is worth every penny you can scrounge up to join it up. Fellas, as always,